Welcome back to the OMB Law Board for Season 6. And firstly, I'd like to say thank you so much to all our listeners and viewers for signing in, subscribing, watching, and commenting and getting involved, because the success of this podcast has been unbelievable, and it's due to you, those of you who are listening and watching. It's just been fantastic. We're absolutely overwhelmed. So Season 6 is going to be amazing. You're going to love it. Strap in, because here it comes. So Harley, welcome back to the OMB Law Board podcast for Season 6.
Good to be back, Simon. Thanks for having me yet again.
So Harley, everything, all estates for you. But today I want to talk about a really specific part of estates and wills, and that is an executor. It's a position that people often think is honourable or important, and it's going to be fun. And I'm glad that I've been appointed the executor of someone's estate. What I think they don't understand is the importance of the role, the obligations that come with it, the risks that come with it. And today, you and I are going to drill a bit down on that.
That's exactly right. Yes, seldom is it fun. Seldom would I describe it as fun to act as an executor. It is a serious legal job. As you say, comes serious consequences if we have an executor who's not attending to their job, administering the estate and discharging their duties as they should, according to law. So we're going to dive into that a little bit today, explore what it means to be an executor, what the responsibilities are that come with that.
So Harley, let's start. Tell us, what is an executor?
All right. An executor really basically is a person who's been appointed by a will to carry out that will maker's wishes. It is a legal role. It's not just an administrative or a family role sometimes. And really the executor's job is to administer the estate of that will maker according to the terms of their will for the benefit of the beneficiaries who are entitled to receive the property that will maker left behind.
So that could be quite a big job, I guess.
Yes, it can be. Sometimes it can be quite a straightforward job if the assets of the estate are fairly nominal, if they're not very complicated, but it can also be a tremendously big task.
So we could have things like selling property, selling shares, dealing with disputes.
Yes.
A whole range of issues that this executor steps into the shoes of the now deceased person.
Yes, that's right. Look, in the early stages, an executor's job is going to be, first and foremost, it's going to be to make arrangements in relation to a funeral. If there isn't already a prepaid funeral plan or something along those lines, that's going to be the executor's job, is to make sure that funeral arrangements are in place, that the funeral is paid for, and that they're also taking steps to identify and secure any assets that person has left behind. So one of the big ones is going to be if there's a property, making sure that the property is locked, secure, all the keys are accounted for, and that we don't have people going in who can access it who shouldn't be unless they're authorized to.
So let me take a step back. I mean, I'm listed as an executor in someone's will, but when does my role as executor actually start?
It technically starts upon the death of the will maker. So it's the will that gives you that initial authority to begin acting and making decisions in relation to the conduct of the estate administration. Sometimes it might not be until you as executor, you've applied to the court and you've obtained what's called a grant of probate before you can deal with certain assets. But it really is at death that the will comes into effect, and that's what gives you your authority or your power to take steps as an executor.
Okay, so I've been appointed an executor. The deceased has now passed and I'm stepping into this position. What are my powers and what are my responsibilities as an executor of this estate?
So you're the only one with the power to deal with the estate assets. That's your job. That's the executor's responsibility. Their big core duties or responsibilities are going to be to identify and call in the assets of the estate, to protect and preserve them, ultimately for the benefit of the beneficiaries. If the will maker left behind debts, liabilities, or they've got taxes to pay, it's also going to be the job of the executor to make sure that those are paid or accounted for. Other than that, they're going to want to make sure that they're keeping proper accounts, they're keeping records of their dealings, of transactions, not just with third parties, but also with beneficiaries. So if they're called on to account for the steps that they've been taking, they can do so. And sometimes it might be the court that gets them to do that.
So that's an interesting point. I guess the executor's gone in good faith and started to administer this estate and deal with assets and call in matters. But a beneficiary, under certain circumstances, could call them to account and say, I want you to prove to me what you've done and show me that you've acted appropriately.
Yes.
And that's a risk, isn't it?
That's right. So, and that's why it is quite a serious role and quite a serious job to take on. You're not just acting for yourself for your own interests. You're accountable to the beneficiaries. Whoever it is that's named in the will, they're taking a share or a part of the property the will maker's left behind. As an executor, you're accountable to them. So if you're not conducting yourself properly, if you're neglecting to act, you're responsible for waste or loss to the estate. You have to answer to the beneficiaries.
So the big question then is, with all this risk and responsibility, when should an executor be getting advice and or legal assistance?
I think an executor who hasn't found themselves in that position before, I think it's always just a good idea very early on to go and get advice so you can, as soon as possible, work out some of the do's and don'ts and what risks, rights, responsibilities attach to that role. In particular, if there's the possibility of disputes between beneficiaries, between executors and beneficiaries, if there are questions about how to deal with certain assets of the estate, how those can be transferred or dealt with, those are going to be some circumstances in which it's good to get advice. There are a whole range of different things. Otherwise, if there are issues with the will, if you've got a will that's 50 years old, you're not sure if it's the last one, if it was signed or witnessed in a bit of an odd way, if you've got concerns about the validity, if there's risks of a family provision application being made, or otherwise, even if your will maker was suffering impaired capacity at the time they passed away. These are all some really big sort of orange or red flags that should alert an executor to, hey, I should probably go and get some advice.
Which protects the executor and obviously it protects the estate.
That's right. So getting that early advice can help set them down the right road so they can avoid risks of personal liability. They can make sure that they're discharging their duties according to law. And everyone ends up being happy at the end of the day when the estate is being finalised and distributed.
Wow. I think we've probably just touched on the surface of that today, Harley, but what I'm taking away from this, obviously, is that being appointed as an executor is an extremely important position with a lot of obligations, potential risk, yes. And you should be seeking early advice from the OMB Estates team if you find yourself in a position where you are appointed as an executor of estate. I think that would reduce your risk of liability.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is, again, it's an important role, a lot of risk. There can be some reward sometimes, but you want to make sure that you're getting that advice early on so that you know you're going to be doing the right job according to law. So in the event you find yourself in that position, you're a little bit unsure, maybe just want some pointers, come in, get some advice, and we can help you get started the right way.
Well, thanks so much for being with us today, Harley. We might drill down on some of those other issues later in another episode of this podcast. And to our listeners and viewers, if you've got a question in relation to wills and particularly being the executor, drop us a comment below or contact our estates team here at OMB.